Good evening. I'm going to start by sharing a few ideas about Hanukkah through some questions. Hopefully, through these, just asking the questions, we'll be able to get some deep insight into the holiday of Hanukkah itself. Number one of the things that we notice when we learn the laws of Hanukkah is that the wicks and the oils that we're allowed to use are very different than Shabbos, for example. On Shabbat, we're supposed to use very high quality oils and wicks. When it comes to Hanukkah, it's permissible to use even the most inferior of wicks and oil. The question is why? What's so different? We know both of these, the Hanukkah and Shabbos candles, they're both considered holy, yet there's a huge difference in the quality that we're allowed to use for Hanukkah. And I think there's some deep insight behind that. Another thing, we know that the right side is always considered more important, more chashuv, holier. We say that the right side is mercy. We bring close to the right. We bring close to with the right hand, and we push away with the left. The left represents din and judgment, and perhaps a side that we're not so comfortable with. So there's a big difference there, and yet the Hanukkah, the menorah, is to be placed on the left side of the doorway as you're coming in. When you have mezuzah on the right, the Hanukkah is to be placed on the left. The left has a certain connotation, perhaps even negative, and yet we're supposed to place the Hanukkah on the left side as opposed to the right side. Another idea is that the Hanukkah is supposed to be placed below 10 tefachim, 10 handbreadths. Yet there's a concept that the divine presence does not rest below 10 tefachim, 10 handbreadths. So what's the deal here? Why is it that the Hanukkah is to be placed on such a low level? And I think that also, when we think about it and we really ponder upon it, it may help us understand this a great deal better. Also, there's a concept of mahadrin min mahadrin. We know that so many people light in the household, the father, the sons, perhaps the girls, but you have almost everyone in the family lighting their own menorah, and not only that, we have each person lighting an additional candle each night. Okay, so if you have 8 people in the family lighting, by the last day you have 80 candles lit at the same time. But the real mitzvah, the bottom line mitzvah, the minimum of the mitzvah is just one candle. That's it for the whole household. And not each night, not that you add a candle each night, but you light only that one candle each night. Meaning, by the 8th night, you still have only one candle lit in the entire household. One little itsy bitsy small little flame. Not as we do today, where everyone is doing a mahadrin and a mahadrin to the most beautiful extent that they could. So why is that is the base halacha? It's a it's mind-boggling that is the halacha, since we're not familiar or we're not accustomed to doing it that way. And the last question I want to ask is, what is it about the day itself, the 25th of Kislev, that is so significant that we start this 8-day holiday? And with that, I'll begin to answer some of the questions, but I want to discuss this idea of the soul itself, and how it's related to in Tanakh, in the Bible, as a flame. So there's an idea that in the very beginning of creation, God said, "Let there be light." V'yomer Elokim yehi or, and there was light. V'yehi or. And God saw that light, V'yar Elokim es ha'or, and it was good, ki tov. That's in the beginning of Genesis. Later on in Proverbs, Mishlei, Kaf Zayin, that's chapter 20, verse 27, it says that a man's soul is the lamp of Hashem. Ner Hashem, Nishmat Adam. And in Proverbs 6:32, Vav Lamed Bet, it says, Kiner mitzvah v'torat or, that the commandment is a lamp and the Torah is the light. So just trying to get a little bit of an idea of how a candle or the lamp or the light, the flame, relates to the soul. So Sfat Emes mentions that the Reshi Tevot, the letters of the word Nefesh, Nun, Pei, Shin, actually represent what we're discussing here as the Ner. Nun is a Ner, that's candle. The Pei is Ptil, is the wick. And the Shin of the word Nefesh, the last letter, Shin, represents Shemin, the oil itself. So what do we know about a soul? So too about a flame. We know that the flame is constantly striving to go upwards. It's flickering and it's alive. It doesn't stand in one place. It's constantly trying to go higher and higher. And that is what the soul is. Yet, what do we find? Just a little bit of some background of the previous Parshiot that just passed by. In Parshas Vayishlach, it talks about the angel, the archangel of Edom, is battling with Jacob, with Yaakov. So if you turn to, that would be Genesis 32, verse 25. So we see that Yaakov was left alone with a man wrestling with him until the break of dawn. Okay, Yaakov was left alone. Ish imo ad olas hashachar. That he wrestled with the man. The word wrestling is v'ya'abek. Ya'abek means dust. When you're wrestling, you're bringing up all this dust. And what does it do to your eyes? The dust blinds you. This is what we were told that the angel wanted to do, was to overcome Yaakov, to blind him. And who was this angel? So he even asks his name, but he does not respond with his own name. But Chazal tell us, the rabbis explain, this was the archangel of Esav, who is the Samael. This is the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. This is the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death. This is the Satan, Satan himself. So what do we have here? So we're going to take the name Samech Mem Aleph Lamed, which spells his name. Sam, what does Sam mean? Sam could mean drugs. It also means to be blinded. Suma is a blind person. The goal of this evil inclination of the Satan is to blind us from what? That's the first two letters of the word is Sam, Kel. Aleph Lamed is God's name. It's trying to blind us from the truth. It's trying to blind us from seeing the true reality, the spiritual reality of the world that exists. And so his name is exactly as described right now, Sam Kel. And that's what the dust also represented in the wrestling. Okay, so now we get to the next point of what exactly is the left side. The word Sam Kel, it sounds like the word Shmuel. Shmuel means left. We go in, we place the menorah on the left side as we're entering the house. The left side. Now, in Hebrew, the samech and the shin, or in this case the sin, can be interchangeable. So you have, even though we're talking about the other side, that's literally what we're talking about here when we mention this name of the angel, or this Yetzer Hara, we always refer to it as the other side. So here we're talking about, it's literally the other side. It's literally the left side. Now, why is it below 10 tefachim? 10 tefachim, the Shekhinah never rests. Yet, what do we do here? We're talking about that little bit of a soul, that little pintel yid, the sparks that will never be extinguished, even that one little light. Remember, we're not talking about 8 lights on the 8th night or 5 on the 5th night. Always, one of those lights is the minimum, and that light can never be extinguished. And it's lower down than 10 tefachim, and it's on the left side, and yet it burns and it illuminates, and it's trying to reach higher. What night? What was it? What is it about the 25th of this month of Kislev? So there's a concept called the winter solstice. Anybody knows even basic astronomy? We know this is going to be the longest night of the year. So there's a measure that's brought down about Adam, the first man. First of all, he was told he was going to die after the sin, the transgression of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So there's a Gemara brought down in Avodah Zarah that talks about a holiday called Saturna and Kalanda. Interestingly enough, Kalanda sounds like the word calendar. Saturna was a ancient holiday worshipping idols, and originally Adam Arishon, when he was created in Nisan, and he noticed after the curse that all the days were getting shorter and shorter. So approximately 3 months after his life began, and the days were getting shorter and shorter, he said to himself, woe is to me. Because of my sin, the world's getting darker, and soon there's not going to be any more light. And it's going to go back to the way it was originally, darkness and void. And this is how he thought he was going to die eventually. But as he was progressing, he went and fasted and repented and cried out to Hashem. And eventually, those around this time, the winter solstice, it stopped getting shorter. In fact, it eventually started getting longer, meaning the days were getting a little bit longer again. But they stopped getting shorter. And he realized, this is the way the world must have been created. Either way, he gave thanks to the Almighty, and he made holidays on these times. And apparently, the way the Gemara expresses it, that many of the early human beings, his own progeny, mistook what he did, and they started to make holidays for worshiping idols. In fact, not that strange. Fine, here it is. There's a lot of pre-Christian holidays that are worshiping idols. In fact, I'm sure that's no question about it, that Christmas probably came and developed as a pagan holiday similar to the earlier pagan holidays. There was a holiday called, what was it called? Sun Invicta, or Invicti, the unconquerable sun, S-U-N, but it also could be translated as S-O-N, which is no doubt where the Christians got there, especially since it was also worshipped on the December 25th. And there are Marduk was a Mesopotamian god as well, and he was also born of a virgin. So there's a whole list. You can Google it if you want. In the meantime, just getting back to this idea that in one of our recent parshas also, in Vayeshev, interesting story that there was a woman named Mrs. Potiphar, and she was going to seduce. She had her mindset. She was going to seduce Yosef, and everyone went to church or went to temple or wherever they went to on this particular day. I'm going to say it. It was December 25th, and she said, okay, I don't feel so well. I'm going to stay home. But really, she had a plan. Her plan was to seduce Yosef. If you look in Genesis, Lamed Tet, that's 39, verse 11, Yud Aleph, it talks about this very day that she went and tried to seduce him. So the verse says, V'yehi kayom hazeh, and it was on that day, V'yavo abayta la'asot melachto, that Yosef went home to do his work. Ve'ein ish mi'anshe abayis sham babayit, and there was not one of the men of the household that was there in the house, but she was there. So what does Rashi say on this verse? Very interesting. It was on this day, Kolomar, that is to say, it was when a special day came, Yom Tzchok, a day of frivolity, Yom Eid Shalahem, it was a day of their idolatrous festival. Shahalchu kulam lebeis avodah zarah. They all went to the pagan temple. Amra, she said, Ein li yom hagun lihizakek li Yosef. I have no day as fitting for becoming intimate with Yosef. Kahayom hazeh. Remember these words. Kahayom hazeh, as this day. Amru lehem. So she said to the members of her household, Choyla ani. I'm feeling sick, and I can't go to temple today. So she stayed home to seduce him. And what day was this? It says, Rashi brings down, this was an idolatrous festival. If we go to our own prayers and we discuss the sanctification of these days, this holiness of these days, what we have to give thanksgiving for, in Al Hanisim, it says, I'll read it in English, you delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the arrogant into the hands of those who are engaged in the study of your Torah. You made for yourself great and holy renown in this world, in your world, and for your people Israel, you performed a great salvation and redemption as of this very day. In Hebrew, listen to these words, Ulamach Yisrael asita teshua gedolah u'porkan kahayom hazeh. This very day, as if the Shekhinah came down and saved Yosef from this seduction of this woman. He saw his father's own face. Remember, he already forgot his father's own face. How is it that he saw his father's own face? Because his father's face rests on the holy throne of glory. And as if Hashem himself came down with the holy throne of glory and reminded Yosef, as he saved Yosef from such a treacherous sin. So we see this is what the holiday is really about. That Hashem has come, He has an everlasting love for the Jewish people, for us, and that flickering flame will never go out, even if it's so low as less than 10 tefachim, less than 10 handbreadths, even on the left side, which is the dark side. And even if it's just one flame that's flickering, it will never go out. That Hashem's love for us is so strong and so great. And He'll come to us in the darkest, in the longest nights. And we should never forget. And one of the psalms that we sing to remind us of this idea. So I just want to get out the English. I have the Hebrew in front of me. The Hebrew says, Toiv lahodosh laHashem, l'zamir l'shimcha elyon. This one's from English. Hagid baboker chazdecha v'amunascha bo leilos. We're all familiar with this. We sing this on Friday night. It is good to thank the Lord and sing psalms to your supreme name, to tell of your love and kindness in the morning. We can recognize that in the morning, but it's the dark nights. Your faithfulness is at night. This is where the emunah, the faith, the real exercise of belief in our God, the God of Israel, that He is always with us. And may we take the strength that we gain through these days, these dark and cold and bitter and long nights, and take it with us through the rest of the year. Hag Sameach, Chanukah Sameach, everybody.